I in no way anticipated the success of the Garden State soundtrack. It was just a mixtape. It really just caught fire at the perfect time in the zeitgeist. I think people hadn't been exposed to that sort of music on singer-songwriter folk music in the film in that way in some time. I mean, I was obviously not the first person to do it, but emulating a lot of people I looked up to, like Hal Ashby, in using music, and of course The Graduate using music, and so I was just building off heroes of mine, and it just was a perfect timing, and it worked, and of course it discovered a couple new bands for people and introduced people to some older artists they didn't know, and it just kept going and going and going. I mean, I knew in making this one I couldn't possibly live up to that album. First of all, people don't buy albums anymore. iTunes has stopped most people from buying full albums. They buy songs, and record stores have disappeared. So everything's sort of changed. The 10 years since has changed the entire music industry. So I wasn't in any way trying to compete with the phenomenal success of Garden State, but I tried to do something unique this time, and that is have a lot more original music. I wanted to have some original music because that's what makes soundtracks special these days, is because otherwise people just pick off a track off any album. And to make it special, I reached out to some of my favorite artists. I reached out to Coldplay, I reached out to the Shins, I reached out to Bon Iver, and they all watched the film and loved the film. And then they wrote a piece of music that the film inspired within them. So that's what was great about it, was they created a piece of their own art from having seen the film, and then I recut those scenes with their music. So it was really wonderful because I got to collaborate with people that I really, really look up to, and it's always wonderful when your first choices say yes. It's funny, on both soundtracks, I had one artist on each soundtrack who said no. And I don't think and it wasn't for original song, it was to license one of their songs. And I don't even think the artists know. I think their manager was just being a douche and difficult, and asking for things that, Coldplay and Paul Simon and all these huge acts weren't asking for. So both times it was a smaller act, with a manager really overplaying their hand. So I always say to artists, if you're an artist, make sure that you have in your relationship with your manager that he or she brings you every offer, because I think I've seen the underbelly of the music industry, and some artists who the band, I won't mention them, who passed on this, would have greatly benefited from it, and their manager was, for lack of a better term, a douche.